Hi, I'm Scott. Welcome back to Canard Boulevard. Another day of maintenance. Yesterday was beautiful. It was 60 degrees and sunny, and I should have been out here working on the airplane, but life intrudes. So today we're here. It is not so nice. It's 40 degrees, cold, it's cloudy. Pretty typical Cleveland, as you can see, just constant overcast. But as soon as you look to the south, when you get about 30, 40 miles south of Cleveland, the overcast goes away and there is sun. But here where I live, near Cleveland, this is what we see all winter long. So let's see, where did we leave off? I did manufacture a new piece of baffling to go around the pipes here to replace the one that broke, as well as to cover up the hole where the old oil breather tube used to go. I've got fittings now, so I can put a right angle hose in for that oil breather. We're doing that today. And we may, if my fingers don't freeze, I may start getting to work on some of this heating tube and blast tube for the cylinder. No electrical work today, it's just too cold. My fingers won't have it. I can't work on little fiddly things when your fingers are absolutely freezing. I did want to say I got an interesting comment from someone on one of my videos, and he wrote, "I respect that you admit your mistakes. I think others would go on the defensive and get into attack mode." And I thought, well, that's an interesting thing to say, because to me, in aviation, particularly as a pilot who insists that they're right when they're wrong, won't admit to it, you're not going to survive. I mean, to me, as a pilot, you have to be willing to admit your mistakes and then learn from those mistakes and learn from others who know more about you, because you're not going to live long enough to make all those mistakes yourself. Pilots who are arrogant and think they're always right and never make a mistake are pilots that typically don't have much of an expected lifespan, really. Yeah, it's kind of something that comes with the territory, I think. I would like to believe anyway. All right, let's get to work. When I took the cowls off, there was a piece of baffling here that had actually cracked and broken. So I removed that. It was bolted in right here with this bolt here. You can see that I've just left sitting there. And then of course, I've also got this hole here left over from where the oil breather tube used to be. Oh, incidentally, I have ordered the heat shroud that goes on here. I was hoping it was going to be here for this weekend. It has shipped. It has not yet arrived. So it looks like it'll be later this week before I get out here to be able to install that. So I took some cardboard and paper and used some cardboard aided design to work out what shape I need to have a baffle in here to fit in. And then I traced it onto some aluminum and cut and filed and trimmed and basically came up with this. And now I'm going to try and fit that in there. It's a lot easier with paper that bends. Not quite sure how I'm going to do this. I'm going to end up having to bend this, I think, and I do have to drill holes in it, so I don't want to bend it more than I really need to. Let's see how that fits into the pipe. That's a bit tight. That one is fine. So we'll pause this while I go file this away a little bit more to get the fit exactly right. Well, now that I've installing it the right side up, it's a lot easier. I'm getting the size of the tubes to fit just right, because I don't want it actually touching, but I do want it pretty close, because the whole point behind this is to prevent air from leaking out around the exhaust pipes. So it's just on and off, trial and error. And then you could see I actually had to file the existing baffle to get the new pipe to fit flush. And once I had done that, then everything fit properly. I drilled the holes, mounted it, put the bolts in, and it's good. All right, so here is the breather hose, and this is the outlet from the engine that we have to connect to. The problem is getting the hose around this bend puts too much of a sharp radius there, so I've got this 90-degree fitting here. In fact, I could probably put two of them and get 180 degrees. if I wanted to move this up like this. And in fact, I may do exactly that. The first thing I need to do is get a piece of pipe. I'm going to cut off the end of this. So I'm going to need a good 1.5 inches there, plus another 3/4 of an inch there. So call it 1 inch. So 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So let's call that 2 and 3. So I need 3 inches of pipe, which I will take off the end. So I can fit that onto there. And we'll fit that one on there. Make sure we get it good and tight. All right, so now this pipe will come up here and I'll fit another right angle piece right in there. And I'll put an 8 clamp on the engine mount to hold that in place. You know what, second thought, I don't think I'm going to use the second right angle on here. I think I'm just going to run the hose straight into it the way it is. So I had to mount an 8 clamp onto the engine mount, as you can see there, and then a second 8 clamp around the hose, and then connect those 2 8 clamps together. 8 clamps are spring steel clamps that are really hard to put in place, but I did manage to get those in there. Then I mounted the hose and put on a hose clamp that was given to me by my father. He took that, I think, from either Commander Aviation or CP Air. It came out of his classic aviation parts collection that he gave to me. And then time to pull off the oil filter, because I never did change the oil filter when I did the oil change, and now put on a new one to replace the one that I just took off, and we'll safety wire that new one in place. Okay, here is the filter that I just took off, and I've got my filter removal tool here, or a take apart tool, which is just basically a cutter with some wheels that cuts open the filter. Wow, that's a beefy, heavy filter. So here is the filter media, and there you can see the bypass spring. So we can chuck that. All right, as you can see, I did let this drain for quite some time, so there's not much oil in here. Now I'm gonna cut the filter media out of this. So what we are looking for is more or less metal. And I can see a little bit glinting metal on here. So you can see right there. Tiny little flakes. But what we're looking, that's not anything that's worrying me. What I'm looking for is bigger pieces. And I'm not seeing anything in here that's worrying me at all. I will take my magnet. These little flecks here that I saw, there's a little piece right there, tiny piece. And it is not magnetic, that's a little piece of aluminum, not worried about that. There's another little fleck right there. Let me get that piece. And again, that's a little piece of aluminum, not ferrous. So not worried about that. These are less than a millimeter in size. These are tiny little flecks, so nothing I'm seeing of concern here at all. There you can see a couple little flecks right there, those pieces right there. And again, just aluminum. And if I look at my magnet, there's absolutely nothing. Nothing there at all. No steel, just dirt and aluminum. All right, so I'm gonna call that good. I'm happy with that. So I took some time tonight to finish building my relay board. This started out as a circuit diagram that I built here. It's basically a relay interface board for 4 different functions: pitch trim, roll trim, landing brake, and landing light. Because the controls for that are small switches on my side stick that can't handle the large current required for motor actuators and landing lights. So those switches will actuate these relays, which in turn will actually actuate the items. The relay board that's in there, the circuit design it was designed from originally was defective. It was faulty. And it had, even though it had relays in there, it had the full current of the actuators going through the side sticks. And as a result, I burned out one of the coolie hat switches from my trim. So I redesigned the circuit here, and I also added a few extra little features. I added a co-pilot isolation switch so that I can turn off the co-pilot stick controls. So that if I have a non-pilot over there, and I want to let them fly it for a bit, then I know they're not going to be accidentally putting a landing brake down or transmitting on the radio or what have you. So this is the circuit here. So I designed the circuit first, and then I designed the layout of the relays and the sockets. These are socketed relays, as you can see. So if the relay fails, you can just pop in a new one. They're quite tight. And then I designed the terminal strip connections, and this is the co-pilot isolation, which is basically made out of this. I haven't done that yet. I need to solder up a bunch of diodes. So this is the relay board here, and so what I have is a ground. I'm going to put the ground right on there, and then I have 3 inputs. This is the landing light power, this is the landing brake power, and this is the pitch trim. So each of these are going to go to their respective breakers that feed in power to where it's going to need to go. So I will turn on the power there. So the way this works is when the individual switches on the side stick are pressed, it connects a wire to ground. And that's how the side stick works. So this is my ground here. I'll just connect this wire in here. So right now I've got this connected onto the landing light power. So if I ground out the landing light switch, you can see the little LED indicator comes on there, and that will then send power out this connector right here that goes to the landing light. If we go on to the landing brake power, which is this connection right here, and now I have landing brake up and landing brake down switches, which are these 2 here. You can see those 2 are lighting up. And that works a little bit differently. The landing brake actuator actually connects right here, and normally there is no voltage there at all. So if I hook up my meter here, so you can see that. So if I connect it up to my landing brake actuator, you can see there's nothing there. Both leads are grounded. If I select landing brake up, you can see I've got 13.8 volts, and if I select landing brake down, I have negative 13. So it drives the actuator in the opposite direction. And that's also exactly how the pitch and roll trim works. So the pitch and roll trim both work off this breaker here. So here is my roll right, roll left, pitch up, pitch down, and those actuators connect here for pitch and here for roll. So that's it. That's my relay board. It's finished and ready to be installed into the airplane. That's going to be a lot more work because I do have to trace and label all the wires that are going to hook up to this terminal strip here. And that is a job for another day. I still do have to wire up the relays for my co-pilot isolation switch, again, for another day. But that's it. My relay board is finished. So here you can see my nose wheel strut. Here's the wheel. I've got a little bit of grease coming out of here because the two spacers in between here are a little bit too long, and so there's a little bit of a gap here for the bearing seal. So the bearing grease is actually leaking out. I've got to fix that. I thought I had it fixed. I thought I had it ground down just about right, but there's still just enough little bit of a play in there. You can see. So I got to tighten that up a little bit. However, we've got some problems here. Obviously the cover is delaminated, and that is from the strut flexing different than the cover. This I pulled off. This should have been fluxed in here, and it's not. So I pulled that off, and here's the foot. I'm going to replace this. So I actually have a new one that is a machined version. That is this one here. So that's going to go on. This is turned around, but this beautiful piece of billet machined aluminum here is going to be replacing this sand cast one here. Much, much stronger. With one added benefit, that the geometry in this one is slightly changed, so that on the old one, when you were pushing the airplane backwards and the wheel would swivel around backwards, it would actually interfere with the wheel itself. I don't know if I can't do it with one hand here holding the phone, but this one, the geometry is changed slightly so that you can actually swivel around backwards without rubbing the wheel on anything. So that's good. Then I had a look at the pivot here and the hardware for the pivot. All looks good. It's actually pretty good shape. This is not in good shape. This is the NG3 and NG4 pieces in here. This should have been floxed in. It was not. When I removed this bolt, the NG4 just fell right out. And as a result, it actually slid. You can see it's been pushed down the strut, and that caused some of this, which is laid over top of it, to delaminate. This is a layer of bid that was put on here to help hold the cover in place. So that kind of like sheared through the bid there, lifted this, and helped all this delamination. And of course the cover is delaminated up here as well. You can actually see there's some foam in here for spacing purposes. So I've got a new one of these coming, new one of these coming. I've got this one here. So this strut is a unidirectional molded piece. It's incredibly strong, but it needs to be wrapped with bid to keep it from splitting under flexion. And that bid layer has been damaged by this sliding down, which means the strut is weakened in here and it could split. It may even have split a little bit. I won't know until I pull it all apart. But basically that means the strut is not potentially not sound. So I have a new strut, and this is going to replace this old one, and I'm basically just going to build this nose gear from scratch. And seeing as I was doing that, I decided, well, we'll go ahead and just get all new hardware. So this is going away, this is going away, this is going away. I've got a new pivot coming in. This one is just a bolt with a bushing on oilite bushings here, and it just pivots on that. The new one actually has bearings, so it has roller bearings to better spread the load, better pivot and move down. So we're going to install that, and then I will take this cover. I'm going to cut this cover away here, and once I've got all the hardware, well, first I have to lay the bid layers of fiberglass on this, cut it to length, lay the fiberglass, and get it prepped. And then I'll install this, and we'll basically get the hardware on there. And once I've got all that on there, I'll cut the cover off the old one here and then lay it on top of the new one with the correct spacing in order to make it flush against the fuselage when it's retracted. So that's where we're at with the landing gear. I know I said this is going to be February, end of February to get this done, and I'm still hoping that's what's going to happen. As long as all my supplies arrive this week, which I expect them to, I will get to work on this, and hopefully we'll get this done by end of February, installed and ready to go. Yeah, That didn't happen. The NG3 and NG4, which is that little piece there that I ordered from Aircraft Spruce, they sent me the wrong one. They sent me two NG4s instead of an NG3 and NG4. The bag said NG3 on it, but what was inside was an NG4. So I called Aircraft Spruce, and guess what? They don't have them anymore. Those were the last ones that they actually bought from Ken Brock Enterprises back 17 years ago, and that was the last one. I hunted down another set of NG3 and NG4, brand new stainless steel. It took weeks to get that here. So the whole landing gear was on hold. I've now got that. It literally arrived today, and as I'm editing this video, it is February 24th. So yes, this is not going to get done by the end of February, but the layup is happening right now. That's coming in a future video. As you can tell, the videos that I'm putting out are about 2 weeks behind where I actually am, but we're getting there. Anyway, so let's go back to the hangar where I talk about everything I got done the day I was at the hangar.
That's it for today, I think. I got a fair amount done. I'm actually pretty pleased with what I saw. I got to the landing gear, got that bracket unbent. I had planned to change the spring because the spring I saw in there, I thought paint was chipped off it. So I do have a replacement spring, but I think I'm just going to keep that as a spare because when I looked really closely at it, I realized that it's not chipped paint on there. It's just white paint that got on there from when the Nosegear was painted. So the spring that's on there is actually in perfect shape. So don't need this one after all. Put it aside, keep it as a spare just in case one day. I got the crankcase vent oil hose installed on the engine and routed around back to where I wanted it. That idle clamp, I really got to get an idle clamp wrench or pliers. That's because it's just painful trying to do that with needle nose. That piece of baffle that I built, I've got that installed and it's fine. Did change that oil filter, which I hadn't done when I did the oil change, but it's done now. Got to look at the filter, that's good. And I did end up putting a piece of safety wire on the Fumoto quick drain valve after all, just wrapped it around in a way so that it can't back off, just as a peace of mind. And I know it's never gonna come out, but now I know it won't. And if it ever does move, it'll be apparent because that safety wire is right there. I didn't get to any of the heating duct work yet. That's okay because I am actually waiting for that shroud that was supposed to be here yesterday, but I'll have it this week so that I can get out and install that on there and then I can run all the duct work all at once. As I said, I'm not doing any electrical today at all. And I do have parts arriving for the new nose strut. All right, that's it for this episode of Scott's Cozy Maintenance Blog, which is what this channel seems to have turned into. Well on the way. I'm still hoping to target end of February to get the plane up and flying again. Of course, I got to get the new propeller on there, but that's the absolute last thing I do. I do have still quite a bit of wiring to do in the cockpit, but a lot of that I can do at home. I just need to find the time to do it, get that relay panel wired up so that I can get it installed and tested, along with some of the other wiring that I need to pull inside the airplane. That's it. Hope you like what you saw. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, corrections, please leave them in the comment section below. And as always, please click like and subscribe on my channel for this video. It really helps me out when you do that, especially when you subscribe to the channel. It lets YouTube know that, hey, I'm producing content that people are interested in and want to see, and it shows them to more and more people. That's it. Thanks for watching.